welcome to CorreoTV edition. I am Isabel Inclán, the editor-in-chief of Correo Canadiense newspaper. Our guest today, we have a special guest today. Our guest today is the Minister of the Environment on Climate Change, the Minister Stephen Guilbeault. How are you, Minister? Welcome.
Thank you very much, Isabel. I'm very well, thank you.
I know you are now in Mexico, in Mérida, the south part of Mexico, for important meeting. Tell us a little bit about this important North American Commission meeting.
Yes, so I'm here for the Commission on Environmental Cooperation of NAFTA. So it's a trilateral organization, commissions, that is celebrating its 29th anniversary. So for almost 30 years now, Mexico, the United States, and Canada have been collaborating on themes relating to the environment, climate change, energy, conservation, public education. The theme this year is public education on environmental issues led by communities. So it's an important organization. The headquarters are actually in Montreal, so in Canada, and the direction of the commission changes every 3 years. So we had a Canadian director whose term is coming to an end. The next director will be, for the next 3 years, will be an American, then someone from Mexico, and so on and so forth.
Okay, Minister, and just a few hours ago, I know you make an important announcement that Canada will support Mexico, Peru, Chile, and Colombia with $4.5 million with data system needed to fight climate change. Can you elaborate a little bit more about this important announcement?
Yes, so this is part of our Paris Accord commitment to support countries in the global south and help them be better prepared to face the impacts of climate change. And in that case, what we're doing is we're supporting the establishment of their climate change plans in these countries. It is also something we are doing with other countries in the world. West Africa, for example, we're working with a number of West African countries to support that work as well.
Yeah, and my question for you is why just for Latin American countries in this program?
That's a good question. The challenge is always, do we support a fewer number of countries but give them more resources, or do we support a large number of countries with less resources? We decided to go with the first case, so support fewer number of countries but have a more significant engagement with these countries to help them. And once they're in a better position, then we can go perhaps and work in collaboration with other countries.
Okay, and that announcement said that the help is going to be for data system. How is working this special support? Why to support those countries, Peru, Mexico, Chile, and Colombia, for the data system regarding the climate change?
So that's a very good question. And one important element of fighting climate change is knowing what's happening in your country. How much greenhouse gas is your country putting up in the atmosphere? What is the contribution of the transportation sector, the agricultural sector, the industrial sector? So data is at the heart of what we're doing. You can't know what's happening if you can't measure it. And that's a very important element of the entire international climate change negotiations, to be able to measure what is happening. Are countries making progress? If so, how can we measure that? So data is very important, and it's going to become even more important as countries, and in some cases maybe even companies, will be willing to invest in the global south, in projects to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but they will want to have the assurance that these projects are contributing to reducing carbon pollution. Therefore, again, come back to the essential need to have good data for the countries in which these projects are taking place.
Okay, Minister Guilbeault, you mentioned that you, as part of that visit in Mexico, where you are now, you have a conversation, a meeting with your counterpart, Mexico counterpart, the Natural Resource Secretary Maria Luisa Albores Gonzalez. How was that meeting?
Well, it wasn't our first meeting. We met for the first time during the last climate change conference in Glasgow at the end of 2021. So today was the second time we got to spend time together, and we feel very welcome by Mexico and by Minister Albores' team. We had a wonderful visit near Merida this morning, where we went to see pin flamingos in a sanctuary. We also went to visit a cenote, and that's actually where the opening ceremony for this year's conference took place in the cenote. So I get along very well with Minister Albores. I think we tend to we have similar background. They're not the same, but certainly similar. And I think we tend to see things in very much the same way.
Okay, and you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, you mentioned the Paris Agreement. How is Canada right now? We are in the summer of 2022. How is Canada regarding the Paris Agreement objective, and what is going on, and what are the priorities on this issue?
That's also a very good question. So a little bit earlier in March, I presented with the Prime Minister what we call the Emissions Reduction Plan. So it's a very detailed plan that shows how Canada will reach its Paris Agreement target by 2030 in different sectors: agriculture, transportation, buildings, industry, oil and gas. Canada is a large producer of oil and gas. So how are we going to tackle these issues? And this plan will also be presented at the next United Nations meeting. You asked what are the priorities? I'd say we have two big priorities. One is reducing pollution in Canada, which is very important, and it's starting to happen. If you look at the numbers, the data from 2019 and 2020, the climate pollution is going down in Canada, but we need to do more. We need to accelerate that. And the other very important thing that we're working on right now is a national adaptation strategy, a national preparedness strategy to face climate change, because we're not ready. And we often think about climate impacts that it's only going to happen in developing countries. Well, it's not. It's happening in Canada. We're having floods in Eastern Canada and in British Columbia. We're having forest fires. We're having heat waves. So we need to work together with our provincial, territorial partners, municipalities, Indigenous leaders across the country to ensure that Canada is as prepared as possible to face the impacts of climate change. And this is we're working on this national plan. It's going to be ready by the fall and presented at the United Nations Conference on Climate Change in November.
Okay, Minister, you just mentioned all the examples that we are facing about climate change, and you mentioned the fires and the heats and everything. And just I would like to put you in a question regarding, because our readers are and audience is from Latin American community here in Canada. How can we contribute? What can we do? What can you tell us, to our community? What can we do to fight the climate change in our everyday life, with the plastic, with the papers? Yes. What can you tell us?
Well, first, obviously, it's not on the shoulders of people to fight climate change, but people can contribute. I mean, the main responsibility comes to government and companies, but people also have a role to play. Every time we reduce our consumption of fossil fuels, it helps the planet. Every time we can take the transit, we can use our bike instead of using our cars by ourselves. And I know that for some people, this is difficult, this is not possible. So I'm not saying that everybody has to do it, but every time we can do it, every time we can not use plastic. Plastic is made from petroleum products. In fact, I've just announced about a month ago that we were going to ban harmful single-use plastics in Canada, 6 substances that are difficult, if not impossible, to recycle, and for which there are already alternatives in Canada. So I think that as citizens and consumers, we can make a big difference by making more responsible choices. And we can talk to people around us. We can talk to our family, we can talk to our neighbors, to our communities, people at work, and together, this is how we will end up having a big impact, a big positive impact on the state of our environment.
Okay, Minister, and finally, what are going to be the next action, the immediately action in the coming months from Canadian government regarding the climate change?
There's a number of things we're doing right now. One of them is we want to put a cap, a ceiling on the amount of pollution, carbon pollution from the oil and gas sector. It's the largest sector in terms of contributing to climate change in Canada, and it's a sector where the emissions have increased drastically in the last few years. So we will be announcing how we were going to do that. We also want to work to make it easier for people to use electric vehicles. So we already have incentives in Canada for people who want to use electric vehicles, who want to purchase electric vehicles. But we need to ensure that car companies are doing their fair share. And we want to ensure that by 2026, at least 20% of the vehicles that will be sold in Canada will be zero emission vehicles, and that by 2030, it's going to be 60%, and by 2035, 100% zero emitting vehicles. And then this is something we're working very closely with some of our allies, for example, the United States, California. So it's not something Canada is doing alone. We have many partners in that, but these are some of the initiatives that you will be seeing in the coming weeks and months.
Okay, that is a good plan from Canada, and of course, if we can contribute to do something, because maybe we are doing a little bit, but a little bit is a behavior and is an action that probably, if we add from many communities, from many population in Canada, it can see the difference. It can make a difference.
Yes, I agree with you, Isabel.
Yeah. Okay,
yes.
Minister, I know you are busy. Thank you so much for this opportunity to reach you, to ask you some important question regarding that problem that is a global problem. Thank you so much for your time.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. And thank you so much for being with us, CorreoTV, and see you next time. Thank you so much.